Okay, let's start by having each of you tell us how you got involved in the 70s and 80s. What was the beginning of your involvement?
Go ahead.
I have to think.
Oh, well, I think my involvement started with a friend telling me I ought to go to the legislative forum at the YW. And so I went, and she said, when you go there, meet Cappy Weber. And I met Cappy, and she and I hit it off. That was the beginning of a long friendship. But in the process, she said, could you do anything for me? I said, well, what do you want? She said, well, I'd like to have someone go to the EEOC meetings and monitor those. I said, I can do that. So I did for several meetings, made them very uncomfortable.
What did you do that made them uncomfortable?
Just be there.
Oh. Listening and learning.
Taking notes, but they didn't ever see my notes.
And so what came about from that then?
Well, I reported back a few things that I thought should be corrected.
To whom? To whom did you report?
I reported them to Cappy.
To Cappy. Did Cappy have more of an organization at that time?
Well, she was very involved in legislation.
Well, I know she was.
I don't think she had an organization.
Were the rest of us involved with her at that time?
I wasn't.
And was that through the YW that she was doing most of her activism, or was it through something else?
I think probably through the women's.
ARCAR.
Yeah.
Religious Coalition for Abortion Rights is what Cappy was doing.
Okay. What was Cappy doing again?
She was working with the Religious Coalition for Abortion Rights.
Okay.
Very much involved.
Uh-huh.
Anything more that she was doing? I know she was doing a lot in the legislature.
Okay. Well, Ada, how did you get involved at the
I
beginning?
think Cappy came into that too, because I was listening. I realized what Cappy was doing, and I became involved because of Cappy, but I didn't do very much with Cappy. It was shortly I was involved. Maybe it was not then. I suppose it was when someone decided I should be on the commission.
So your first involvement might have been the beginnings was the Commission on the Status of Women?
The state commission.
Oh, the State Commission.
The
Okay.
state commission, which is not the same. We had two commissions at the time.
Right.
But the state commission was at the state office building. Gino Hara was director at the time. We were working hard. I went to Washington for the National. I went to Chicago with the National. But I was about to go to I think Los Angeles for National, and I didn't go because we were defunded. So that's how long I was on the commission for 2 terms. We were appointed by the governor, and we were appointed, he was cognizant of our political background and tried to make it an even balance. We were very different kind of people on the commission. We couldn't do very much on the commission, so then we started the coalition. And the coalition was free to do what we wanted to do without any regard about politics. I mean, about our own party politics. So we could do lots of things.
And so who founded the coalition?
Well, I believe that was Rose Miley and Virginia Walsh, basically. I was involved very early, but they were basically the founders of it. I did have materials, and I didn't read it.
Then who made up the coalition? How did you get on the coalition?
Showed interest.
Okay. Okay. And what kind of funding did the coalition? Did they have any funding at all?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I think we funded ourselves.
Okay, so it was just
active.
activism and you just were a part of it and you didn't have any funding?
I think that's right. We had we may have had help from organizations
Right.
when we were joining together to work on the legislation. And various members of various organizations came together to work on the legislation. And we had nurses, a nurses group. We also had WIFE, which is Women in Farm Economics. But mostly it was AAUW. It was, I don't remember who all we were.
But a lot of
Organizations.
a lot of organizations
The
came
YWCA.
together to work together.
Right.
Right.
And so the coalition could draw together this group, and we had planning groups to go to the legislature. And I think that probably our lobbyists were from the coalition.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And we had Virginia Walsh was lobbied for us, and Sue Ellen Wall, and we did our own.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about some of the legislation that you were part of. I know, Ina May, that you were very involved with the Displaced Homemaker Act. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I was. I got involved in that through a friend. And she had heard the co-founders of it on television, so she ordered their materials. Then she came over and dumped them on me. She said, this is what you need. That was Marie Carey.
Oh, was it?
And so it was, she said that because she thought it fit me. I had been divorced and a single parent, you know, and so the things that qualified for a displaced homemaker. And so
Tell more about what that means, displaced homemaker.
that means someone who's not been in the workforce and has lost her job as a wife.
And needs to re-enter the workforce.
That's right.
Right. And so what did the Displaced Homemaker Act do?
Well, it authorized the establishment of displaced homemaker centers. We had the New Direction Center at the YW.
Really?
And I think we had one in Hastings, one in Grand Island, and I think one in Omaha.
And what was the New Direction Center about?
Preparing women to go on with their lives and to take control of their lives, teaching them some basics that they didn't have, even to writing a check, driving a car. There were many, many basic things that they did not have, and they just weren't equipped for it. So it was easy to fill in the gaps.
What a fantastic organization to do that kind of thing.
No, it was.
And so what other legislation were you involved with?
Well, we got our
Big fingers sometimes.
What legislation besides the Displaced Homemaker Act really stands out as important during that time?
Well, I'd have to think. I was down there almost all the time, and just trying to get funding for some things. And
Do you remember some of the things that came about because of Title IX and getting women involved in sports and that kind of thing? Ada?
I remember some lobbying.
Okay, well, tell us stories. We want to hear stories.
This is a senator, I believe, from Grand Island. I shouldn't say specifically, but I think that's where he was from. And he was very much opposed to Title IX, and he thought it was very wrong that women should play basketball because they couldn't have babies if they played basketball. He even said it on the floor. But you can imagine what some of the women did with that.
Yeah.
Very small woman was carrying around a basketball. Sure that, determined that determining that he would, but when he spoke to our lobbyist, it was a tall woman, it was Virginia, and maybe Sue Ellen too, it just about floored her. And so she continued to work with him and talk with him, but it didn't mean that he changed his mind.
Mm-hmm.
But he certainly was opposed to Title IX.
Oh. It seems hard to believe that that's true now when you look back and see all the things that women have done with sports, and yet what we know is that there are still people who are fighting some of the things that we have and really trying to take away some of the things that we
When
have.
I was in high school, women couldn't even play basketball.
Right.
That was 100 years ago or so, but.
Yeah.
What do you think, what was it like for you as a woman getting involved in politics? Had you ever been involved in politics before?
Absolutely not.
And what do you remember about being involved in politics? What were some of the important things?
Well, it was a learning experience. Definitely. Would you agree?
Yes, I remember when Kathy told me, you want to do something? Join the political party.
Mm.
And I became involved in the Democratic Party at the county level. And that was when you begin to do something.
Uh-huh.
As a consequence, I did go to a midterm convention.
So what did you feel about the legislative process?
It was necessary. What we were doing was necessary. Did we win? Did we always win? I don't know that we even... We
didn't.
had fun working.
We didn't keep score.
No, and we had fun working. We had to, what was necessary, we would work at. And whoever had, if the nurses had something that we needed to work at, we would work on that. We did put together, the coalition probably put together the trip to Chicago to march for the ERA. And we also put together a group. I don't know that the coalition did it, but we went to the International Women's Year in Houston, which was quite an experience. And a lot of negative was in our going we met a lot of negative.
Really?
Oh, very much so. In fact, we had a meeting with Hughes Shanks on what to expect if we were under attack. And we found a lot of negative when we were there, and we lots of catcalls and that sort of thing. It was very interesting that it wasn't that dangerous as far as we knew, but we did prepare. And I was surprised that we even thought we had to.
But that was an experience that you remember. What are some of that you remember?
I wasn't there.
You weren't there. I'm sorry, you can't help me. We were billeted. Our hotel was right by, I don't think it was I can't really remember that. It seems like, who does the cosmetics and all?
Mary Kay?
Mary Kay. Mary Kay had, and then there was something else right there. So we thought that wasn't really what we were doing. We weren't interested in Mary Kay and those people who were doing that sort of thing. We were marching for the ERA.
Right.
And Nebraska has in its name, if you just single them out, ERA. And we all wore banners with ERA that were all stitched together. We took, Virginia had several generations. I think her mother was in that march, and they had 3 or 4 generations in that march from Omaha. So we were, and see, this was the coalition put them together. And finding the funding to going to Chicago was quite a task, but we did it. People gave us money to go, and we went. So
That's fantastic.
It was.
What a great story.
it was great fun. it was not just all worry, worry, worry. We had fun with it. We also got some fun out of Houston too, but that was more intense in some ways.
In what way was it more intense, the Houston?
Well, certainly by getting ready to go was intense, because you're laughing,
No, it's not funny.
but you know what it was we were talking about, because they brought in busloads of far right, would that be what I'd call it? People who were certainly opposed to what we were doing. And they managed to, what did they do? Ina May, you were there. They jumped up and,
They just opposed everything.
oh, I know what one of the things was. They brought a slate of people to go. And we didn't have a chance to, we didn't do that. We should have done that, but we didn't. And so they had enough people to get their people in to go to the, as delegates to the convention. And however, there is a story about some feminists were wearing an armband, and I don't know this story because I wasn't participating in it, but they would go into a room and they knew where we voted on material to go on this platform, and when we did that, we won the platform, but we didn't win the delegates. It was interesting, and in Houston, there was a banner of women moving forward. It was just sort of filmy figures, and someone of our delegates went to one of the major ones who were negative about our going and asked just would she sign her copy of the plaque. And she said she would not sign a poster of naked women. So, she didn't.
Ina May, did you go to Houston too?
No, I did not.
You didn't go either. Well, so tell us a little bit about what you think it means for women when they come together to do these activities. What does it mean personally when you get yourself involved in activism?
Well, it's been my life.
Sorry, can I just check that recorder really quickly? I just want to make sure. I'll give you just a second to
Okay.
question and take maybe 20 seconds to consider. Just want to check really quick to make sure. Perfect.
Do you need to turn that light on back there because it seems like it's getting kind of dark? Is it getting too dark for you or are you okay?
I think it's getting better looking on camera. Actually.
Oh, good. Okay.
The light back there is going down a little bit.
That's good then.
So
Okay.
I think it's getting better and better actually.
Okay, wonderful. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, and the sound is great, so I'm gonna restart. Good to go.
So, what do you think that it means? What did it mean to you personally to be involved with other women in a cause?
It was wonderful. I also was involved in the county Democratic Party, but that was only on the side so that I could do something. Working with the women was much more fun. And I know so many women now because of what we did then.
You develop real friendships.
You really do. And even though it's not a depth anymore, you don't see a lot of those women, but they're so special. They even remember me.
Ina May, what did it mean to you to be involved?
Well, it was a whole different world for me. I had been in the world of work, working with veterinarians for the USDA. So it was a world that I didn't know before. And Cappy was really the one that introduced me to, and then later Ada. And it just meant so much. the friendships that were developed, starting with the commission members. And we met regularly, and we had our own little committees, and it was just a whole different world for me.
Are you talking about state or local commissions?
Local.
Yes,
That's where I started.
yes, and you did a lot more of the committee work there.
Mhm.
We did some, but not quite the same
No.
at the state.
The committees held the local together.
Right.
The committee structure was really important.
Oh, very.
And what committees were you on?
Well, I was on legislation, and I think that was about it.
Can you tell us of some of your experiences at the
It was hard on the feet.
Don't wear heels. And yet you had to be dressed up.
And you had to know your congresspeople or your state senators.
Do you remember any incidents with your senators or any of the things that you were involved when you're down at the state house? What kinds of memories do you have?
Working for the Displaced Homemaker Centers, getting money for that was a part of my effort. And I guess that was primarily what I worked on.
Uh-huh. Do you remember any incidents with individual senators?
Oh, I called several out of the legislature.
Did you testify then in the legislature?
Yes. I also testified on the health care bill, I remember.
Okay,
And I testified several times.
yeah. But you don't remember any specific incidents?
Not particularly.
Because Chris Funk told us that you went like this to a senator one time.
No.
We wanted to hear your side of it.
I think she had that mixed up with one of Helen Bousalis's aides.
Oh. You're
And
gonna
I-
kind
And I
of.
did that to him.
Oh, you did. Helen Bousalis's aide. Ah. What did you say to him?
Well, I don't remember that much. He was being critical and I just didn't take it.
There you go. Or maybe it was Rosemary that told us that.
I
Yeah.
would guess that it was. I've heard her tell that story before.
You've heard Rosemary tell that story. That's funny. Do you remember any specific incidences, Ada, when you were at the legislature? Besides the basketball, which has become
No,
an
that
infamous
wasn't
story.
mine. I did meet with now Mayor Beitler.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what we were doing, but I know at one time we had done our work trying to win the ARA, and he decided that it would be good to have a state ERA. We were totally involved in a lot of other legislature, and we did not want to take the time away from what we were doing because we did not feel that we would have much success in doing a state ERA. Where would it go? What would we get? And so we refused to do it with him. I think he was quite disappointed that we did. He was very much involved in the lazy bankers bill. And you know what that was.
Tell a little
Well,
bit
the
about
lazy
that.
bankers bill was a situation in when usually it was a man who would go and encumber the property with a loan, and he would not have to tell his wife that he was doing it. Well,
Or
we
get
didn't
her
like
sig-
that.
Or get her signature.
He didn't have to get a signature, not even get her signature. That meant a lot later. It meant a lot to her later. It really did. But Women in Farm Economics, we got involved with that, and they sent, every 15 minutes, they sent a message called Senator Haberman, and he didn't want any more calls. I don't know if he really changed his mind or not, but Women in Farm Economics was the part of us that really moved that. And Chris Beitler didn't, I don't know how he was involved in that, but I know he was, and he wanted to stop on that.
And it didn't pass.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think it
I
did.
don't think so.
No.
because the women stopped it. That was, I think, Kathy, that was really one time when we were quite successful. There were other times that I don't remember because we were just having so much time and involvement and fun sometimes
Sure.
in doing it.
That's great. What would you want young women today to know? What would you say if you had a whole group of young women in front of you? What would your message be to them?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was resetting the clip. Could you say that again?
Oh dear, we have to do it again. Okay, Ina May, I'll say the question again for you, okay? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so what would you say to young women today?
Vote and pay attention.
Do you mean pay attention to what you're voting on, or do you mean to pay attention to what happens when you vote?
Well, both. But
Yes.
just in general, pay attention to what's going on.
Then I think you need to find a way that it means something to them. They need to know. That's what happened to us.
They need to know why.
The why. Why did we do this? And that we needed to do it. That there was a need and we needed to do it. We felt we had to take care of ourselves. And by doing that, we worked at the legislature because the legislature was doing things that weren't good for women. And we had to stop it as best we could. Now sometimes we got the lazy bankers bills stopped. Sometimes not, but that's why we work so hard.
Some of us used to go on the road and introduce to communities how a bill was passed, and then we would talk about examples, and that was a bill that came up very often.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that we taught people how the bill
Yes,
is passed in the legislature.
we sure did.
We went several places to do that.
That's great. What other advice would you have for young women today?
I think of my granddaughter when you asked that question, and I can't believe that my granddaughter was so naive. But she's in the process of getting a divorce, a very difficult divorce. And so many things she didn't know and didn't do. It disgusted me.
Even my daughter, same thing.
And so being aware, when you're saying paying attention, you're saying pay attention to
What's going on and why?
in your
Even in your own life.
Oh, yes.
And then look at how it affects, how you're affected by outside stuff. Whether it's
Right. That's right.
whether it's another law or whether it's a failure in the way of the law does to protect you. I think that we have much need now, but I don't know how to involve people as we had an opportunity to be involved. Planned Parenthood does some, and that's wonderful, but that's only a piece, and we need to do more. But it's a real struggle. I know that we need to support, maybe the thing is we need to be more supportive of our interests with the senators we have in the legislature. They need to know where we are, what we feel. We as women, no matter what our age is, they need to know that yes, we care about this, and yes, we are listening. And maybe that's what you mean by being aware.
Yeah. You've capitalized it.
What do you see happening in the next 30 years as
Oh,
far as
goodness.
women's rights are concerned?
I'm scared.
You are? What do you mean by you're scared?
I'm just afraid that a lot of them are going to be lost.
I don't see much strength there. Well, but then there are women. I think about in the woman from George Washington University who testified before the Congress. When they had, I don't remember the senator who, and I don't remember the bill, but they had a whole group of men and they were talking about women's rights and not a woman on the panel, not a woman to be shown. The Democratic women basically, but other women called themselves together for a committee, and they didn't include only women, but they had this young woman testify before them, and she's been here in Lincoln, I think. And it was just because they took it, it was not right, and they did something about it. That's what we need to do, and that's what I think young women need to know and do, and be willing to know what those women, they need to watch C-SPAN or whatever it is.
Yeah, Sandra Fluke.
Yeah,
was
Sandra
in it.
Fluke.
right.
Yeah.
8 male legislators were
Right.
talking about women's bodies, and there wasn't a single female on that.
Exactly.
in
Right.
that group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one that Rush Limbaugh called a slut. Do you remember that?
Because she was on
Oh,
birth
yes.
control. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, she talked here and she did a fantastic job. We were able to hear her and she did a great job, so. What do you think, Ina May? What do you think is going to happen in the next 25 to 30 years?
I think we're gonna have to work like the dickens to keep what we have. Do you agree with that?
I don't want it to go, and I don't see anywhere, but it's a possibility of it sliding away. I see the real struggle since the Congress and the Senate is so divided. They're not supportive of women's interests
Not
particularly.
at all.
And I think, who's going to say if we don't?
It's really true.
If women can't speak up, somehow, through groups or with individuals or just their own legislators, it's possible that we will lose out. And that's what you seem to be afraid of.
Mhm. If you have a daughter and I have a granddaughter that aren't working to preserve what we have, or even know what we have and appreciate what we have, then we've got a problem.
I've got 2 daughters.
Both the same.
No, very different situation. And then I have my 3rd daughter does understand.
And is she involved?
No, not really. She's involved in health things and is very much interested in doing a lot of things in the health area.
Well, that's been a part of her life for so long.
Hasn't it? Yes.
Can you remember how your lives before you had some of the rights that you worked for? Like before Roe v. Wade, for example, or before equal pay, or have you seen changes in your personal life or observed changes?
Not really. My work for the federal government was pretty much organized, a structure.
Did you work then before? You said you went through a divorce. Did you work before your divorce?
No.
So you just went into the workforce after your divorce.
Is that right?
And how were you able to get a job? Did the New Direction Center help you?
No, they weren't around then.
Not yet. Okay.
No, I had to pass the civil service examination, and that was my entree into getting a job.
And since you were working civil service, did you make the same as men did in your situation?
Well, depending on your grade. And that's questionable whether your grade was equal to what the men were, but that was my situation and what I was working in. I was working with professionals, and I was not a professional. I was not a veterinarian. So that was the difference there. But I could still tell them what to do. I can still put my finger on it.
And did you work, Ada?
Not very much.
Okay.
I did some teaching and didn't do very much. Did some nighttime teaching.
But did you see differences in women being able to make the same as men, or did you have stories of women who were, being discriminated against with the economics
I just know that as the general thing. I did not experience it personally because that wasn't. I
Right,
wasn't in a situation where it would make any difference.
right.
Um,
Were either of you involved in any of the civil rights types of things?
no,
No, I wasn't either.
but Rosemary certainly was.
Yeah, well, that's
Big
right.
time.
She tells lots of good stories, that's for sure. What about your parents? Did you feel like your parents encouraged you?
No,
Not really.
they were farm people, wonderful people, but farm people, and didn't really understand what I did.
But then the question would be, like, for example, were your parents supportive when you were doing?
Yes. They didn't understand it, but they were supportive.
They were. That's great. And what about you, Ada?
Well, Mother, I'm sorry, wasn't around to see what I was doing. She really would have approved and was working hard. She always voting was very important, and we always had to vote. I remember a story that she told of my grandmother. My mother was a senior at Denison University in Granville, Ohio, and grandmother went to visit when she was graduating. Grandmother was in very tender, delicate health, but she was exclaiming that the janitor there in Shepherd's Hall could vote and she could not. And this was 1915. Women worked hard before they could get the chance to vote, which was in 1921. A lot of work went into that, long before that and that time. But that is, I think, my grandparents and my mother would have approved very highly. And so I was not discouraged, of course. And in fact, my father said at some time, and I don't know anything much about the IWW, but the Wobblies, and he was supportive of that, just a farmer, because he was interested in equal pay. And that's sort of what I would remember.
Great. Great. Can you think of anything else, Juries?
Oh, I just wonder if you have any other personal stories from your own personal experience about struggles or obstacles that you might have faced because of your gender, because you're female, that maybe you wouldn't have to face now because of some of the work you did. Things like sexual harassment or just, prejudice or assumption that you can't do something because you're female.
I never encountered that,
That's great.
so I really can't contribute to that.
How about shaking your finger? Did you have any?
Well, that's why she didn't have any of those because she had the authority. Nobody's going to cross her, that's for sure.
I remember calling someone down at the county Democratic Party meeting, and he was not very nice, and I told him so. He was very rude and not understanding at all. And there's no problem to call him down on that. But by that time, I probably had some gray hair. And that does make a difference.
Yeah.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a difference.
It does.
It
That's
gives
true.
you a bit more authority.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned catcalls when you were in Houston, and you got some kind of verbal abuse when you were at that
Well,
conference.
I don't remember very much about it. We were outside of the arena, and there were people who were very much against what we were doing. And I just know that we just marched on and paid little attention to them, but there was an attempt to invade our interests and whole program. In Houston, there was, I have trouble remembering enough detail to tell any story. It was so exciting because we had such women leaders.
Who were some of the women leaders at that time that were at the conference, I mean? Do you remember?
Bella Abzug, Betty Ford, there must have been many that I'm not remembering, but it was quite exciting to be in the audience and hear them and know that they were with us, or that we were with them, whichever it was.
And different parts of, and different walks of life too. You know,
Oh.
they all came together for
It
one
was-
common cause.
That's the whole thing they're talking about. We here in Lincoln, or in Nebraska, we were a group from all kinds of places and interests and so forth. And so yes, we were coming together to do all of that sort of thing, where we found a common pull to do something. And it was exciting to know other people. I remember going to North Platte and talking about this sort of thing in the meeting. And they called some people together and they found that they didn't know anything about that. You cared about this. They're right there in North Platte. Oh, you didn't know. I didn't know about that. I didn't know that you cared. I didn't know you were interested in that, because I was there to give a talk, and when we were there doing that, they didn't know that the pull that when they gathered people together. And I think that's where we are now, that many times we don't share what our interests are or what our concerns are, or the thing that can pull us together as women.
We don't have a format for doing that.
No. Did we have one then?
We created it, but we're not doing it now.
That's right. And thanks to Rose Miley.
Oh, yes.
And Rose brought a lot of people together.
Very much so.
And Cappy taught
And
a lot
Cappy.
of people.
Cappy.
It's great. Well, we're definitely trying to get people together to get some things going now. So hopefully we will be able to do that. And your stories that you're telling and the things that you're saying will hopefully motivate lots of people to do the same things that you did.
Well, I
We hope so.
Yes. We hope they find a common ground for one another. And you don't have to be the same people. You don't have to have the same party. You don't have to have anything that except a concern. I
And
think it is important that you be aware of what others' concerns are too.
Mhm.
Right. Okay, any last minute things you want to say? This is your chance.
No, I'm just really grateful for the effort going into this, because I think it will be helpful.
Oh yes, I think it's long needed. And if our history and our stories can help, we're glad. Because I think young women need to be where we were. It's so much fun. It's a lot of work, but it's so much fun.
I think the problem is so many of them are working now.
Not all. I see they do have time sometimes for other things. I remember in the commission that none of those women had time to read about international things. And my interests were very much involved with international things and the happenings that have for women on the international scene. And I was expected to bring a report to every meeting about international things that they had never had time to read, never had time to do. So that's the other thing I learned, that what is it you read? What is it you can see? What do you take time for? That makes a difference. And our internet and our women on the state commission didn't have time. Is that, were you
True.
there?
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. When I made those reports?
No, I don't think, I
I
would
don't
think I was
remember
there.
the reports, but I remember they were so surprised at some of the things that I knew. That I found in the paper that day or whatever. Because they didn't take time, that wasn't their interest. And so they were able to do other things and they wanted to know.
Sure. Great. Well, thank you both very much. We really appreciate all that you've done to get us where we are, and we're going to carry on your legacy.
We're glad to hear that.
You know, what it reminds me of is, thank you for your service.
All right, great.
That's wonderful. Thank you both so much. That was really wonderful.